This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News, news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
You know, it's interesting about women. I have been doing a lot of traveling. I've been meeting young and older women. A lot of them be telling me that women can't get along. They don't know how to get along with each other. But one thing they're going to have to learn how to do is share their man. Like a lot of women say they're okay with sharing their man as long as the man takes care of home, pays the bill, make sure they, make them a priority. And I had told this to other women. They get mad at me just being the messenger. But a lot of these women who get mad are by themselves alone and bitter. From my understanding.
Well, they're sharing the man. Look at it this way. Let's see. I'm not saying I advocate that.
Right.
But let's run with this. Run with this. Mm-hmm. If you take the type of woman that Hillary Clinton represents and what she represented as something the country rejected, let's look at what's happened for the last decade and a half. Okay. The Defense Department and the Census Department know this. For the last decade or so, on average, every year, all ethnicities combined, white, black, brown, red, yellow, only 28% of each year's high school graduates are male. That means 72% are female. Mm. Right now in America, 68% of the college undergrads are female. Only 32% are male. Wow. On the graduate level, it is 64% female, 36% male. So basically, on the high school level, that is what? 28% is roughly 1/4. Mm-hmm. So you've got 4 quarters in a whole. So that means there are 3 women for every 1 boy, 3 girls for every boy that graduates. On a college level, there are slightly more than 2 girls for every boy that are in college, every boy that's in college. And on the graduate level, there are 2 women for every man that's in grad school. So that means on at least somewhere between 3-to-1 and 2-to-1, there are more women on a given academic intellectual level than men. Mm-hmm. So we've had 45 years of take your daughter to work week, and we've never had a take your son to work week ever. What winds up happening is that women, because of feminism, have created a situation where they have re-legitimated polygamy.
Right.
In other words, there are only a few men on the same or higher level as they are economically. So if you promote a policy that says you, your daughters, your granddaughters, your nieces, and the respective relatives of your friends in those categories are going to be in an environment where there's 2 of them for every boy that is on their same level, what did you just do? You said they're going to have to share, which is exactly what that is.
And you broke it down with the numbers, Jerry. Yeah. And black women they say that black women are the most educated group of people in America, or one of the most educated group of people, or studies have said. But look at the condition of the black man right now. So if they want a black man, they definitely have to share.
See, I'm aware of a family situation, mm-hmm. and this individual came from a whole family. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the family wound up going to college, but he was the oldest boy, and his mother told his father that she would never sleep with him again if he wasted his money sending a boy to college when they need to save the money to send their daughters to college so they could meet a man with money.
Wow.
Now, if that's not the most insanely stupid thing that I've heard, I would challenge myself to come up with another example.
Right.
But that's the way the thought process goes. And the interesting thing about professional black women is looking at some of the census information. White women who are educated tend to have approximately 2 children. Actually, it's a fraction.
Mm-hmm.
College-educated black women tend to have no children at all.
Mm.
But then again, you have a lot of black women who are having 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 children by 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 different babies' daddies.
Right.
So what's happening is that the population of black America is becoming skewed because of that reproductive dynamic. So you're getting people who are born and raised into household situations where there's just one parent, where the parent has no college education, has no high school education, and often has never worked, has not worked in 2, 3, 4 generations.
Mm.
And what you get is just surplus labor for the plantations that no longer operate, but they still have a plantation breeding program in place. Now, that's real ugly. But that's just if somebody backs off and says, I don't care what you think. I'm just looking at the facts, figures, and circumstances. A deceased friend of mine who used to be a supervisor and a musician and college educated with the Memphis Housing Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something from 20-some years ago. We did a study and we found that of the families where you could trace their backgrounds, of those who had been in public housing for 4 generations, close to 95% of the ones where you could trace the family backgrounds were descendants of slaves who lived on plantations with 200 or more slaves. So in other words, those plantations had been breeding units. They bred some good slaves, and those slaves are still living in a slave condition as of 1991 or 2, that is in public housing, not as a fallback thing where times were hard, but 4th generation situations.
Right. But also, what about the
and
women? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Judge.
Let's see. I had a situation in my courtroom that was tragic.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1994, and I was sentencing a woman who was 57 years old.
Okay.
She had multiple felony drug and theft cases. I became aware of the fact that I had some more of her family in my courtroom. She was 57. She was born in 1937.
Mm-hmm.
I had her 43-year-old daughter in my courtroom. The 43-year-old daughter was born when the 57-year-old was 14.
Wow.
Okay? The 43-year-old daughter had a 34-year-old daughter in my courtroom. The 34-year-old daughter was born 1 week prior to the 43-year-old's 10th birthday.
Wow.
Now, the thought of a pregnant 9-year-old is just sickening.
Mm-hmm.
But the 43-year-old also had a 32-year-old son born when she was 11 years old, and a 31-year-old daughter in my courtroom born when she was 12.
Wow.
The 34-year-old daughter of the 43-year-old daughter of the 57-year-old daughter had a 21-year-old daughter born when she was 12. And when I sent the 21-year-old daughter, she had an 11-year-old daughter who was pregnant with her second child.
God, you can't make this up. Oh, God. Whoa.
Now, fast forward about 14, 15 months. The 57-year-old wasn't complying, so I'm making her come in there every 2 weeks so I can eyeball her after I've locked her back up for 60 more days.
Wow.
She's now 59 years old. All right? The 21-year-old is clowning around too, so I've got her back in there. She's 23. Her 11-year-old daughter is now 13 with 3 children.
Oh. Wow.
Now, let's get back to the now 59-year-old one. She has to come in every 2 weeks with some paperwork signed. So one of the things is I put her in with this group that was doing sociological and psychological research. 1 week she came back and she had 342 lineal descendants. 2 weeks later, she had 358. 342, 16 more in 2 weeks.
Wow.
See, that's an exponential increase.
Wow.
Now, by the time I retired some years later in 2000, I had more than 120 of this woman's lineal descendants in my courtroom. This woman was now 63 years old. If I hadn't had this study going, no one would have ever realized these were her descendants. But there were 120, I think it was 123 more members of her family that had come through my court with felonies. And what we had discovered was every single male descendant of this woman had been sentenced to the penitentiary, not just jail, by the time they were 23.
Wow.
We only discovered 2 of this woman's descendants that had ever had a job. Only 2 of these, the same 2 that had the job, had graduated from high school, and it turned out that they were girls who had been essentially kidnapped by their fathers and taken to Chicago when their mothers were doing penitentiary time. And those were the only ones that had ever graduated from college. By the time I retired, this woman had 3,400 direct descendants.
Gee, wow.
Now, the public defender's office kept track of her and 4 other women, one of whom was white. And as of about 8 years ago, they had almost 250,000 direct descendants between them that lived in West Tennessee.
Just between those 2?
Now, yeah.
Okay.
My successor, the late J.C. McGlynn, Reverend J.C. McGlynn, a fine man who took over Division 9, tried to continue the traditions that I'd set up. He's the one that told me that after I retired, this woman had, when he checked her out, 3,400 lineal descendants 2 years after I'd left the bench.
Wow.
But you see, these women are still breathing, but they have 250,000 descendants that are related to them. The boys were having 15, 25, 30 babies by different women, and apparently were priding themselves on being masculine because they had so many descendants. 2 of them, if I recall, were featured in a commercial appeal article about 3-4 years ago, who each had more than 50 children, outside children, by different women, and none of them were providing any support. They just kept getting locked up over and over by juvenile court.
What does wow?
That's what you see. That's what we don't see. That's what nobody talks about. And when you get a Hillary Clinton or somebody like that, you're getting somebody who continues to promote that travesty. See, one of my pet peeves in life is pedophilia. I can't stand somebody messing around with kids. I don't like Michael Jackson. After listening to him give that little talk under that umbrella in the rain when he was talking about there's nothing wrong with a grown man being naked with a 10-year-old boy in bed who's not his relative because it's just love. That sickened me. I wanted to vomit. And I think, personally, my opinion, the death penalty is useless, but is a vindictive thing if there's one category of defendant upon whom the death penalty ought to be imposed, it's pedophiles. But I'm sitting there on the bench for about a year, 1991, and I'm unloading on this clown. I'm sentencing him. How could you be in bed with this 12-year-old that you knew was 12-year-old? And I had this woman who was the girl's mother put under arrest for contributing to the delinquency because she knew this 28-year-old man was living in her little apartment in the projects, sleeping with her 12-year-old daughter. How could you do this? So she tells me, she said, well, all my friend girls, I don't understand what you get mad about, Judge. All my friend girls say you got a woman up in your house. She ain't bringing in no check, have no babies, so she can help support you. What's wrong with this picture? So I had her placed under arrest right then and there for contributing to the delinquency. And I would not let a bond be set. I said, you can go up to the Court of Appeal, Criminal Appeals, if you want a bond set on this woman, whoever represented her, and I appointed the PD's office. And this guy looks at me, tears in his eyes. I've got him on his stand. I'm just chewing him. He said, I don't understand. My big brother was born when my mother was about 12 years old. I was born when my mama was 14. What did I do wrong? So I just stopped, stone cold cut off. I said, goodness gracious. These people don't even realize this is wrong. So, you know, and that was also the first time I thought about defendants as these people, like I'm distancing myself from them, those, us. You know, like, wait a minute. Wait, this is not my cultural background. What the hell is happening here? You see, and that is the kind of thing that we don't look at. And on my show, for 15 years they ran it. It was arbitration, and I made these producers get the dates of births of all children that the litigants, that's either the plaintiff or the defendant, had, and all witnesses had. And they were astonished to discover all of these people who had started having children at 12, 13, 14 years old. They wouldn't believe it. So I'm saying your policy, you see, that you are putting in place, that you are advocating, has caused this. It has contributed to it. It allows it to happen. And you don't even get it. And you're running around here all namby-pamby-poo talking about right and wrong, and people have rights to have all the children. Who's going to pay for it? Who is going to educate them? What do you think happens when you keep doing this? You've got a poisonous city, a poisonous situation in the barrios and ghettos where you've got a population that is beyond what that area can support in a fashion that those people think they are entitled to. And you've got stress. The stress, according to the medical doctors I had working on this, is causing these young girls, when they're still babies, to go into estrus earlier and reach puberty early. Because it's the same stress as if lions and tigers are eating up the population of the village. So the girls turn woman early to make up the deficit by all of the people that are getting eaten up by the lions. That's the kind of stress we have in our neighborhood. I was talking to somebody back in California, and I took them on a tour where I grew up. And I had some details from LAPD. And I said, look at this. You have a statistically higher probability or possibility of getting killed in this area where I grew up in South Central than you do being in an American uniform in downtown Baghdad in 2003.
Wow.
That's what kind of hell's there. But you see, it's these inconvenient things that we don't want to deal with. So that's why I say man up. Promote manhood, protect womanhood. Let's get some order. Let's get some prosperity. Let's get some purpose. Let's get some sense of ethics and some sense of duty, honor, obligation, responsibility, and accountability, which lacks in our neighborhoods. The young boys form old Stone Age gangs, but they don't understand their purpose because they haven't seen real men. They see rogue cannibals running around, you know, yo, man, dude, this me, man, like, yo, man, dude gonna talk about he gonna get these sisters in love, man, like my hoes out there, man, moving grams, man, providing finance so we get the wherewithal to move merchandise, man. He sitting there give one of them talking about she in love. Oh, hell no, he gonna die. You know, see, that kind of crazy crap going on.
Well, what about the people
we have a lot to do. And see, we have a lot to do. And having a Hillary Clinton up in there talking about, oh, good mother is going to take care of us. That is the wrong thing for us to be looking at. We need to not pick the lesser of two options anymore. We need the lesser of two evils anymore as an option. We need to heighten the contradiction so we can see what the hell the landscape really looks like when the fog blows away. So you can see there's a trap over there, there's a hole there, there's a stake there, there's a snare there, and you wouldn't have even seen it beforehand.
Wow.
See, it ain't nice because this country is coming to a crunch where it is about to be superseded on the world stage by the People's Republic of China is Boss Hog. And there's going to be a reactionary backlash on this, and it's not going to be pretty.
Wow.
So, you know, it's like, see, like, what can I say? I said this, I probably made 4, 5, or 6 handfuls of enemies because I spoke out against something and somebody didn't hear anything that went before or after it. That's all they remember. But all I'm trying to do is get people to think about their circumstances and what they really are. I'll give you an example. Now, I won't detail over a large audience how I came by this information. But let's take Hillary's husband, Bill Clinton. They wanted to go all off on Bill Clinton about Monica Lewinsky and all of that, blah, 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 blah. The newspapers and journalism has switched from being quasi-objective entities that tried to objectively report the news and then come up with editorial opinions and comments to that thing that used to be on the last page of the last section of a newspaper known as the gossip column. It morphed into tabloid journalism. There was a period with the ilk of National Enquirer where they'd have an article with a baby sitting on a couple's knee with an airbrush pig snout in the headline, and I actually got this and saved it to argue or show it to juries. It says, baby half pig, half human, born in barn yard, adopted by loving farm couple. 2 years later, they had a follow-up, half boy, half pig, prospering under loving couple, and they had a slightly larger, older edition with a pig snout airbrushed on its face. See, that kind of tabloid journalism has become the norm for American journalism these days. CNN did us the disservice of having 24/7 news which kicked the station, the channel, the service off in 1990 when they had the first Gulf War. But ordinarily, there's not enough news to fill up 24/7. So morphing into something different is what you get it, what you've got. In other words, instead of news being presented in an entertaining fashion, it changes from entertainingly presented news to entertainment. And they have decided, considering the background of most of the media now being essentially in league with feminism, that they want to down masculinity. So what they do is, instead of focusing on the power and the choices, if only as a lesson plan for the youth on how to do things, of the leadership, they focus on their human foibles and they tear people down. Now, I met two children that LBJ had born to him in the White House. One was by Marie Brown. One was by a black White House secretary. They both looked like LBJ. Nobody said anything. George Herbert Walker Bush had two mistresses, and believe it, his opposition had copies of the leases that he had executed using his name for their benefits for Manhattan condos. George Walker Bush had a number of women he had gotten pregnant, and Daddy had fixed it up for him. We know about Bill. In Reagan's White House, I'm told that Nancy had the boys come in and do her, and when they got through with her, they did Ronnie. And both of them part of that Hollywood thing. The only one that didn't do that was Jimmy Carter, and they didn't like him. Jerry Ford was an old drunk that would try to deal with anything that looked like it had a skirt on it. And I can remember being at a Washington think tank in the early 70s when Nixon was in the White House, and you'd see the Secret Service down on 14th and U picking up hose to go take back to the White House. LBJ, I met two kids, one of whom was born in 65 and the other one in 66 that he fathered. John F. Kennedy, I've heard a story from some who were there, a couple of people who were there that tell the same story, that Marilyn didn't just sing happy birthday for Kennedy. She stripped stark naked in front of the White House press corps, got down on her knees with him in a chair, gave him a head job, and swallowed. And you didn't hear anything about that in the White House press. Eisenhower's mistress wrote a book. He wound up acknowledging, yes, she had been his mistress. Truman was subject to an assassination attempt walking to a grill across the street from the White House with one of his mistresses, and some Puerto Rican separatists tried to kill him. They put 2 bullet holes through his girlfriend's overcoat. FDR had a couple of girlfriends, so it just goes on back.
All right.
It goes with the territory. Alpha male, herd bull gets the cows. Back to your thing about resurgence of the concept of polygamy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that just goes with the territory, but it never was touched upon before. Clinton's stock went up in Europe. Bill Clinton, when people thought, did he have a mistress? It's
right.
Like when Mitterrand, the French premier, got in a car wreck early in the morning driving himself. He was coming back to see his mistress. From seeing his mistress, his ratings went up. Approval ratings went up. So it's crazy what's been going on. And we have to go back to the center. See, yin yang. If you go to this restaurant, it's a buffet out here off of Hacks Cross. It's called Chow Time. It was Mrs. Chow started that with some black participation. and they do an Asian buffet and a soul food buffet all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get some of their plates, they've got the yin-yang symbol on there. That's part of it's black, part of it's white, but it's not an even dividing line. It looks like a black drop of water in a white one, where on one side it's thickest black with a thin black tail, where the white one is thickest there. That's the male-female principle. Men and women can do some of the same things, but men are better at some things than women are, and women are better at some things than men are. Now, a lot of people don't like that idea, but I swear I can't stand going in to do stuff when I'm with, if I have a wife or a girlfriend. I'm going through a divorce now, but I detest and despise going in shops looking for candles and towels. Just get some damn towels. Hell,
right,
want them clean. Hell, they're green. Pick the damn thing. Just gonna wipe your butt anyway. You know, wipe the sweat off. But they want to shop. And they want the candles and the bric-a-brac. And yeah, when they get through, it looks nice in the house. I'm not interested.
Right.
But you know how we are. Why don't you stop and ask somebody for directions? No, I'm gonna find it. I know it's around.
That's right. Right.
The first instance is a carryover from when they were gatherers and they went out looking for ripe fruit, berries, plants, tubers, and stuff we could eat. And the other one, where we don't want to ask for directions, that's a carryover from when we went exploring to find the next mountain pass or the trail where you could capture or kill the game to come back and feed people with. See, we still have these things. So there is, and there's sexual dimorphism. And what is sexual dimorphism? That is where the male of the species is larger than the female or stronger. You see it with gorillas. Male silverback who runs the gorilla group has a harem. He weighs 800 pounds. The females weigh 150 to 200. When you see a chimpanzee in a movie, it's never a male, because males are a lot bigger and a lot stronger, and they are dangerous. They can literally tear a man's arm off without much trouble. So they have dimorphism. We certainly do. And quite frankly, men like to hunt and fish. We like to go do adventurous stuff. We like to find our own way. We like to explore. Women like to go down known pathways. They are sticklers for people coming following the rules, whatever they may be. Men are the philosophers who set up the rules. We're the ones that like to do the adventurous stuff. You know, there's some women that cross the line a bit. And there's certainly enough these days, boys, who swish and cross the line the other way.
That's true.
But it's the balance. You know, what is the average? What's the median? What's the norm? You see, so that's what it's all about.
Well, Judge,
Part of the problem.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you this about the educated black woman not having kids. What about the issue of abortion? Because we know we talk about the women who are having kids. They're not getting abortions, but it's like a lot of. You do believe like a lot of educated black women are pressured to get abortions, or how much you think abortion plays a role in these?
Let's just put it this way. I came along when I graduated from college in 1969. Abortion was not legal then. But I know a lot of my co-ed colleagues who got them. They were obtainable. They went through all kinds of changes. They didn't look back. They didn't have any grief. They weren't hung up on the religious thing. And it's a choice. Now, abortion centers in most people's mind about when it occurs, first trimester, second trimester, or what I call postnatal abortions. You see, essentially, if you're not hung up on the religious aspects, it's okay. You know, remember in our ancestry, white, black, brown, red, yellow, if they had a famine and there was a surplus of babies, they put them out for the predators to eat. They put old folks out for the polar bears to eat, or the cave bear or the saber tooth to eat. You know, that was the way things went. And whatever the case is, somebody put it to me one time, said, well, you know, if it's the wrong time, all it takes is a good screw and you can be right back in business. Mm. Now, on the other hand, postnatal abortion, it's just a reflection of the population dynamics and the crowding and the fact that the environment is not conducive to the lifestyle expected by the organism. Now, what is a postnatal abortion? It's a drive-by. It's a drug overdose. It's the senseless result of domestic violence. It is the insanity you find in the ghetto, the barrio, the trailer park, where people are so uptight and stressed out that they'll shoot each other for very little or no reason. See, that's a postnatal abortion. Mm. So do you wait for the entity to be here for some years and fed before it gets taken out? Or do you take him out on the front end and no harm, no foul? Now, my position on this personally is that a woman has an absolute right to control what's growing inside of her. That's her business. I'm not going to get involved in that. Mm-hmm. That's on the other side of this 15-foot high fence with barbed wire on the other side. Baby, you do what you want to do with whatever's inside of you. If you want it in there, fine. If you don't want it in there, your business to take it out. I won't say a thing. You know, but that's because I have people that I know that are good friends of mine that practice Zen. They're Buddhists, they're Sikhs, they're Hindus, they're Muslims, they're Christians, they're atheists, they're agnostics, they're Jews, they're spiritualists. You see, so everybody's got a point. Mm-hmm. So perhaps in that position, maybe we need to look at the People's Republic of China. They made it mandatory. You only have one kid. Otherwise, we will have a lot of fresh stem cells because you will be aborted. And now when they got their population down, they can have two now.
Wow.
That's just being practical.
So do you agree with eugenics then?
What's that?
Do you agree with eugenics, the philosophy of eugenics?
I agree that a woman has an absolute right to control what's inside her body.
So the father doesn't have any rights? I mean, the potential father, you know, if a man want to, you know.
No. And then the bottom line is I tell most of them, young brother, do you know what this means? When this comes out this way, you're going to have to pay for it. It ain't just enough you had. See, we have some political families around here that run stuff that can't do anything because too many of the men in the families had too many outside babies, and they're extorted down here through juvenile court, which has been his business for the last going on 60 years. Mm-hmm. It ain't about how many you have. It's how many you can take care of, which goes to the other thing we were talking about, the resurgence of the concept of polygamy with some women. It's, can you take care of the ladies that you say you want to have? If you can, then go right ahead.
That makes a lot of sense to me. 'Cause I think a lot of kids do need that a man guidance, a male presence in the home, some type of way.
They do. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what people say. Kids do not prosper as well when they have only one gender in the household raising, whether that's a single parent or it's gay marriage. Sometimes that's all that can be arranged, but mom and dad have a lot to do with healthy kids. Now, some of the things people look at and say, oh, well, they're fine. No, they're not. I'll tell you what I always ask people. especially the boys, and it's a good clue as to where their heads are. Young man, let me give you a hypothetical. It's several hundred years ago, several thousand years ago. You have been on a successful hunt. You're walking back through the forest. You've got a small game animal or 2 or 3 over your shoulder that you killed. You're going to feed your family and the people with of your village. As you come around a curve, you notice that, wow, this is a war party from a rival tribe. It's about to fall on my people and slaughter them. Nobody's looking. Do you turn around and sneak off and save yourself? Do you sound the alarm to warn your people and maybe attack from the rear to sow confusion in your enemies and die? What do you do? I often get in the ones that I'm suspect of, well, nobody's looking, why don't you run? Nobody would know. But what about the most important witness in the world? Well, there's nobody there, you said. There's one person there, yourself. How could you live with yourself after that failure of character? You see, these things need to be taught where the men not only give band training to the boys, they also show the girls how to be women. And the mother sits there and puts in the boy's head things that help him to become a man. And she trains the girls on how to be a woman. You see, when the girl can come in, Daddy, can I have $5? Go away, girl. I just gave you $5 yesterday. Daddy, please. And she pats him on his face. Go away. Here's $20. Don't bother me. You see your mama if you want some money. See, she'll grow up to be a good woman and understand how to work a guy. Right. But you get a girl grows up where there's no daddy around, she's likely to grow up standing up with her fist on her hip, waggling her head, going, let me tell you what you gonna do. No, you're not gonna tell me what I'm going to do.
Right.
No, you can ask me. I remember one time I was dating this woman. She's a professional woman, but she just didn't have what it took. And I was a bachelor. I just got through trying a homicide trial. It was snow on the ground. She invited me to come over. And I was tired. I took my coat off, sat down, and I said, hey, thanks for having me over. She said, well, look, don't get too comfortable. You're going to take this trash out. I said, okay. I said, could you just hold on a second? Look, I didn't tell you to hold on. You're going to take it out now. I'm going to make you take this trash out. I said, you're going to make me take the trash out. And she came back. I see you putting on your coat. I said, I'm not gone. I said, yeah, you were fool enough to tell me you're going to make me do something. If you're that big a fool, I don't be to be a bigger fool and stay around here hanging around with you. Bye.
Wow.
Now, as a pragmatic matter, every time she ran into me for several years after, she'd try to come over and turn a drink over my head, even if she had a date. But, you know, that's just me. I'm a man.
Yes, sir.
I'm a grown man, and I will be in league with other men. I don't mind working with women, but either somebody I know, a brother that I think ought to be in charge is going to be in charge, or I'm going to be in charge.
Yes, sir.